Hi there, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites. Joining me in studio today is a very good friend of mine. I can say that for sure. This is David Kelley, who is an attorney and is running in Greensboro for the House of Representatives. Welcome,
Well,
Candidate Kelley.
yeah,
How are you?
I'm good.
Can you rattle off all the names in your district? I love when
Well,
legislators
Craftsbury,
have...
Greensboro, Glover, and Albany. That's not hard.
There you go.
Only 4 we have to remember.
Oh, some of them stand up and they go on forever, and I think, how do you do that?
Yeah.
But that's a great area. Those towns are wonderful.
Yeah,
Great
I
group.
love the area we live in.
Yeah. Well, I know how much you're involved with Greensboro.
Yeah.
You're on their select board, correct?
I'm on the select
Yeah.
board, and then I represent them on the high school board.
Oh, nice. That's great.
So, and then I'm chairman of the board of the Highland Center for the Arts in Greensboro.
That is fabulous.
So I'm pretty involved in the community.
I don't think people down here know about the Greensboro Center for the Arts. I mean, it's such a hidden gem.
Boy,
It's amazing.
it is absolutely phenomenal. And this weekend we had Always Patsy Cline, the musical.
Right.
And I love country music, and I love Patsy Cline.
Great.
And I just thought it was great. Just
Nice.
the actors did a great job. The woman who played Patsy Cline is a fine singer.
Nice.
And it was great.
Awesome.
We've had so many terrific programs there. You've been there.
Well,
You come up from
I've been
time to
there
time.
twice, so.
We have a group coming up called Quebecois. So obviously French Canadian. I think I'm looking forward to that. We just have a lot of stuff coming up. We have a ferry festival that draws about 1,000 people.
You're kidding.
No, we have all of the ferries from the Northeast Kingdom congregate for the festival. And
I'm not going to pursue this.
but I was very, very close to the Fairy Queen last year.
Were you really?
The Fairy Queen and I were very close.
Really? Anybody we know, or you just?
Well, I happen to know them very well.
I
The
see.
Fairy Queen had a unicorn. She brought her unicorn, which looked very close to my wife's buckskin Morgan. But obviously, with the unicorn, it couldn't have been.
That's so funny.
Must have been somebody else's
Yeah,
unicorn.
that's good. We should check that out.
And the Fairy Queen did look very much like my wife.
I was going to say, I bet I know
Both
who
very,
the wife
very
was.
attractive.
She is. That's great. Was that an elected position?
I think it's something that is hereditary.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
She gets it.
You know, it's like Queen of England. It's like
Just as long as you get the wave, you're
Right.
You're in. Can you tell us more about your background? Because we're just highlighting the surface here.
Oh, okay. My personal background.
Your personal background.
Well, my family's been in Vermont for as long as anyone can remember. I always say I'm a fifth-generation Vermonter because my dad's family came over to work on the railroads around the 1840s. But my mom's family, my mom's mother's family, was here before the Revolution.
Wow.
In fact, Burton's Island was part of their farm. They had a farm in St. Albans.
Nice.
And Burton's Island was this place that they didn't pay much attention to. But they owned Burton's Island from about 1812 to 1951.
That's fabulous.
And then they sold it to some family that around 1964 sold it to the state. And it became a park, which is great. I've camped there. And then my mom's dad came over my mom's grandfather on her dad's side came over during the Troubles in Ireland. So around 1917.
Nice.
I don't know what brought him here, but he was he sold insurance, but his son went to Harvard Medical School.
There you go.
So he did okay.
That's
But
great.
he died very young.
You went to law school.
I went to Georgetown Law School.
Oh, that's great. That's beautiful down there.
I had a good
Yeah.
time in law school. I had
Nice.
a great roommate. I had a good job. I worked a little too hard. My senior year, there was one course I never attended.
Great.
I
Excellent.
did have some trouble with the exam, but I was going to school
funny.
full time and working 40 hours a week. It was-
Would you walk in, they go, who are you?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But we had a great time, And I really enjoyed Georgetown. I like being in Washington. Part of my job was monitoring congressional hearings
Oh, perfect.
for different clients.
Yep.
I was working for a big law firm.
Nice.
And it was fun. And
Great.
I got to see some people I really admired, and I got to see some people I didn't admire very much at all.
Right. And you're an avid hunter. What else
Yeah.
do I know?
Growing up, I was an avid hunter and fisherman.
Fisherman, right.
And you know, I got tired of deer hunting a little early in life because you know, going out in the cold and tramping all over the place for one shot.
Right.
You know, fishing was a lot more my thing.
Yeah.
Warm, sunny summer
Exactly.
nights where you could catch a dozen fish.
Right, and have a good dinner.
Yeah, so that was a little different. And so I, you know, through my life, I fished so much. My dad used to say, by this point in your life, you must know every trout in the state of Vermont by their first name.
That's cool. I love trout. Oh
too.
my God, that's great. I know when the Wayside has perch, I am right there.
I like perch too.
It's so great, and obviously it's local because they get it from the fishermen in the area, and
Yeah.
oh, it's wonderful. So, and you lobbied.
Well, I was
were
never
you
a paid
lob-
lobbyist,
Oh,
but
really?
I worked. I worked at the legislature for the Vermont Wildlife Coalition,
Right.
and we actually paid. We paid Chuck Storrow to lobby
Oh,
for us.
Chuck, I love Chuck.
And I worked with Chuck.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, we paid Vince Aluzzi to lobby for us, who did an incredibly effective job.
And he knows everybody up there.
He knew
anyway.
everybody,
Yeah.
and he could talk to everybody, and he did a good job.
Great.
And so, you know, we've been able, I think, to change some of the laws around wildlife for the better, but it's been really difficult.
Right.
And as you know, I spent a lot of time trying to persuade legislators not to go forward with Act 46, but they did. And then I worked with a couple of other really, really talented lawyers appealing it to the Supreme
Right.
Court, but we lost on a 3-2 decision. So now,
I was so impressed with you that day when you were in front of the Supreme Court. Honest, I was almost in tears. I thought, no, seriously, you knew that stuff backwards and forwards, and you were like, well, on page 102, how does he know this stuff? It was great. No notes, no nothing.
Well,
you were very impressive.
we worked really hard.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you know, Michael Duane, who was an assistant attorney general for a long time, he did a ton of work, and
Yeah.
Michael was great. And Charlie Merriman helped. There were Nick Lowe helped.
Yeah.
There were just
Well, that was a
bunch
big
of
day,
lawyers.
and you had a lot of people there behind you.
Yeah, well, we had some
Plus,
good lawyers working
yeah.
on that case.
I thought you had it, tell you the truth, but
I did too.
yeah, it
So
was a shock. But anyway, you announced your candidacy. Now, you've run before,
I have.
and you did it again.
I did. You know, you did it again.
You did it again. Well,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work, and you know what's ahead of you. you know?
Yeah, but you know, I spent a lot of time at the legislature in the last 5 years, and just knocking my head against the wall on education issues and wildlife issues, and I would like a seat at the table.
Right.
I would like very much to have a stronger voice on those issues that I care about the
Yeah.
most.
Good for you.
And I feel like the Center for an Agricultural Economy has made a big difference. They've become the support system that a lot of little startup value-added food businesses need for product development, for storage, for shipping. They provide a lot of support services, and they've basically been an incubator for a real cottage industry of value-added foods. Every winter now at the Highland Center for the Arts, we have a winter market, and we invite the crafts from around the kingdom and the food businesses to this market, and we attract 1,000 to 2,000 people with 100 or so
That's great.
vendors. And you can see what's happening. You can see this emerging economy. and it's
great.
exciting.
That's great. So when you're knocking around and asking people, what are they saying their major issues are? I think I could probably rattle
I'll
them
bet
off.
you could. I'll bet you. What do you think?
No, you go. But
Okay,
they're-
affordability,
Right,
number one. We can't afford to live here anymore.
right.
The taxes are too high, the cost of housing is too high.
Right.
We can't find a house. If we could find a house, we couldn't afford the house. That's number one. Number two, the property taxes are,
Right.
which goes with the housing.
Right. Out of sight.
Yeah, and then I've been surprised in the kingdom that public safety would be an issue.
Oh, David,
But-
you know, Campaign for Vermont did a survey.
Yeah,
It was never, public safety was never in the top 5, ever, whenever we did a poll. And this time, I think it was number 3,
well, I
all
think
over.
the fentanyl, the opioid
Yep,
crisis
right.
has had a lot to do with it.
And well, and you're reading some violence in the paper too.
That's
The
right.
guy was killed, the body was found here and there.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what is this?
Yeah, we never,
No.
in the kingdom, we never had stuff
No.
like that
But it's
that
here
I can
now.
remember. Well, and I think some of it is drug-related.
Right.
I've been surprised knocking on doors and seeing houses with surveillance cameras, you know?
Oh.
I never
No,
locked
open
my
your door.
I never locked my
I know, me
doors.
neither.
Ever.
Me neither.
Ever. And so I was at one house that said, "You're no longer a trespasser, you are now a target." It's like, that's what the sign said.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, whoa, man, this is Vermont.
That's
Oh,
scary.
this
That's
is-
a little scary, making you a target.
Neighbor taking care of
Yeah,
neighbor.
right. Wow.
So anyway, so that's been different
Yep.
and surprising.
Do they feel I'm sure because they all drive bazillion miles a day, that the oil issue and the energy and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that stuff
Oh,
must
yeah.
really
Yeah.
get to them?
Yeah, well, it's tough because I have to say, in our community, everybody is recognizing the importance of climate change. We have felt the devastation twice in a row of these
Oh, right.
extreme weather events. Last summer, the floods just tore our roads apart in Greensboro.
Huh.
We had to borrow $1 million. We still haven't gotten enough. We've only gotten about $30,000 from FEMA. We're paying interest on that money. And then this storm that hit us about a week ago, it's going to cost us probably $750,000
Wow.
to recover from that. And the last I heard, I don't even think the governor's declared an emergency for that.
He tried. He's collected all this information, and they submitted to FEMA to see if they could get some money.
Well, I
from
hope he
them.
gets on the stick because we
Yeah.
need to. I don't know how we're going to pay the $750,000
And
we're spending right now.
You just said the same, and I'm going to do a show on this. As I talked to FEMA a lot on the radio when I had the radio show. They kept wanting to come in talking about how much money they've given out, but everybody I talk to says, "Oh, we've only gotten, what'd you just say, 30,000 from them."
Yeah, that's all we've
Why
got.
are they so slow? It's not fair.
You got me. It's been a year.
I mean, I know it's government and we work slow, but not when people really need the money like that.
I'm hesitant to sit here and criticize them because
Yeah,
we're so dependent on it. Hey,
Exactly.
guys.
It's just me. I'm criticizing you.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
you
we need to get some money or
Yeah.
we're up the creek.
Right.
I mean, we have enormously high taxes already because of the second homes and
Yep.
stuff, and so hopefully FEMA's going to come
Yeah.
through pretty soon.
Yeah. Eventually.
I've heard that they may even pick up the interest that we're paying,
Oh, well, that's good.
which would be wonderful.
Yeah. When it
but-
comes.
Yeah.
I can't. I remember years ago, there was a big flood in Barry, and the FEMA people were there, and he found out, he said, well, you have to have at least 50 homes before we will do anything. Now, he's staring in the Opera House at all these people in the chairs, and there wasn't 50 homes. It was maybe 30 homes that were completely destroyed. They should have known that before they came in. I thought the people in the audience were going to kill this guy. They were so, and I don't blame them because they came to hear from FEMA how FEMA was going to help them, And the guy said, well, if there's less than 50 homes, we're out of here. And
Whoa.
I said, you're lucky you're not dead. I mean,
Wow.
people were really crushed. Can you imagine? Anyway.
Well, I wish that the amount of money that we allocate for FEMA could be somehow allocated for Vermont, and we could administer it here.
Right.
And not have to go through this big,
Right.
huge bureaucracy.
I mean, nobody's out to cheat FEMA.
Yeah.
I mean, they just want the money to go back to living.
But these weather events are going to keep
Yep.
on coming.
Yeah.
And we need to do something to be better prepared.
Yeah.
And, that involves bigger culverts. It involves a lot more planning, a lot of risk assessment. And, our planning commission needs to kind of pivot and start doing more preparing.
You need to find some basins where the water can collect. I don't know how I knew this. I was talking to somebody the other day, and the AOT garage where they are now, because it's in a floodplain, they're going to move.
Yeah.
And they're looking at land right now, and they're going to take that space and make it into, what did I just say? What word did I just use?
water basin?
A water basin to catch
Yeah.
some of the water coming down off of 62 and
Good.
that's flooding 302, and that's what we need all around the place.
Yeah, all over the state. We're going to need to do some
But
planning.
I was surprised at the flooding, that more work hadn't been done, and why was there so much flooding in the same places? So I don't know what we're doing, but
I don't think people
should
thought it
speed
would
up.
happen again
Yeah, I
so
know, right,
quickly.
Right.
I just think everybody thought, okay, we've got time.
Yeah, I know Washington County mental health got really busy, because how many times can you have this happen to you in 2 years, really?
Yeah, I don't know. Downtown Montpelier.
Yeah.
How bad was it?
That wasn't bad in Montpelier
Yeah,
at all, it
good.
was just basements.
Good.
But Barry got hit once again
Very
with
hard.
mud, and people, somebody's house got actually picked up and moved.
Yeah.
One of the people I know from working in Barry. Very sad. So what is sort of your, hi, I'm David Kelley, and they ask you, what are you interested in pursuing? What are the kind of topics that are most dear to you
Well,
in this legislature?
I have to talk about housing and affordability.
Right.
Because that's what's on people's minds.
Right.
So I have to talk about it. And, I think those things are related to education, which is the issue I feel the most comfortable with.
Right.
And we're going to have some difficult conversations about how we restructure our budgets around our school system.
Right.
We're spending a lot of money that is pretty distant from the classroom. We've got a really top-heavy bureaucracy that I think we need to reconsider
Right.
and look at. We're putting a lot more of a burden on the shoulders of a property tax than we did, say, 40 or 50 years ago,
Right.
when it was essentially an education tax. Today, it's a social service and an
Right.
education tax.
Exactly. I was talking to somebody this morning at breakfast about how much money is spent on the social services issues that we keep asking our schools to do. A lot
Well,
of money.
and so we need to ask ourselves if that really belongs with the general fund and a more progressive tax, or
Right.
if it belongs with the property tax. One of the things that I think is going to be really, really difficult is creating a better budgeting process. The education funding formula is really impossible to understand. It's gotten so complicated. And most school board members are really not very comfortable
Right.
working with the education funding formula. I don't think I'm all that stupid, but if I want to understand the education funding formula, or if I have a question, I got to call Brad James at the Agency of Education.
Yeah.
We need to simplify that formula, and we need to sort of re-empower school boards to be really active in line-by-line
Yeah.
crafting of budgets.
I was asked one time to be on a school board. I went, no.
Yeah.
You really, to be on a school board, you really have to be prepared and know what the heck you're talking about. It's serious stuff.
But when you're doing the
But- and
budgeting, it's
you don't.
difficult.
Have
It's
no
really
idea.
difficult. So much of it is done at the state level.
Yep.
And then by the administration, which has a finance manager, and it gets handed to, in Greensboro, at the select board level, we spent 3 months, line by line, 1 day a week, going through the budget and
Right.
saying, can we do better? Can we do better? Can we do better? And that was an incredible process that gave us what
Right.
I'm sure everybody thought it was too high, but a responsible budget.
Right.
We passed an $8 million budget at the Hazen School Board with 2 meetings, 1 hour each.
Whoa.
$8 million.
Now,
$8
that's
million.
not right. Plus, on a select board budget, you pass it, it goes directly to your town. In a school, it goes to the state and comes back a whole different number.
Right,
And,
right.
and you work so hard to make it as low as possible, and then they come back with it higher than what you're killing yourself trying to get lower.
And parts of it, are handed to the boards and then to the voters. The supervisory union's budget is never really scrutinized by the
Oh,
voters.
right.
So there are pieces to the budgeting process that need to be fixed,
Right.
and we need to find more agency on the part of boards.
Ah, interesting.
And in a way, it's counterintuitive, but in talking about consolidating supervisory unions, one thing that I would hope would come from that is that more responsibility would fall back on the shoulders of the boards themselves.
Interesting. That'd be good.
I don't know.
And they should also look at what is required. A lot of times, if you look at what is required by a school board or a principal or a superintendent, you could knock out. I did that at DMV. What do you use this information for? I don't know. We've just always collected it. Throw it out.
Yeah.
I bet they've got half the stuff they do you don't probably really need, but you've always done it, so we will do it. Do you ever think of a zero-based budgeting every year and make them define and make them justify why?
Well, that would be interesting.
Wouldn't that be cool? I think it should
That would
always
be interesting.
Because I know how they operate in state government.
It would be very difficult.
Yeah.
That would
Zero
be-
base.
Boy, that would be such
Isn't
a
that great?
job.
I tried to push that, but it makes sense because they say, well, we only did a 4% increase over last year's budget. Well, did you really need that budget? I mean, it should be zero base. I think you should defend everything.
Boy, well, and we do that. I think
Yeah.
that's what we do with our town budgets.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say it was zero-based. We took last year's budget and we worked line by line and we asked,
right.
can we save? Where are we?
Yeah.
And we had things where we could save and we had things where we
Right.
couldn't.
But if you start off at zero, you have zero, and work from there, you'd be surprised what you can take away. It really makes you think about different things than you would just looking at the budget from last year.
Oh, God, it's mind-boggling to think about.
Anyway, that's cool. I like, a lot of companies do that every year. I worked for a company for 20 years that did zero base. But anyway, so have you thought about what you might do to help public safety or things you have in mind? Because it's,
Well,
It's everywhere.
I've been working for the last 2 years in the Essex County State's Attorney's Office.
oh, right,
And
see firsthand.
well, it's been a real pleasure. I've really learned a lot, and probably domestic abuse and drugs are,
there you
the vast majority
Right.
of cases that pass through that office.
Huh.
And so I've thought about it quite a bit, and there's a lot of things I think we can do better.
Good.
I think we had a fellow released from the correctional facility a few weeks ago, went to the Colonnade Motel and just overdosed and killed himself.
Oh, my.
And it seems to me one thing we can do is have more support services.
Absolutely.
Especially if we know somebody's been in the correctional facility with an addiction. Obviously, hopefully, we can do more in the
Right.
correctional facility. I think we can, but I also think we need to be prepared for people trying to integrate into the community if they're leaving the correctional center
Right.
with an addiction.
Yep, and not only, they're faced with the addiction, they're faced with finding a place to live. Good luck with them. They've got to have money,
Yeah.
and they have to find a job. And very few support services are out there for them, because it's just, and where do you go? What do you do?
Well, you know what I
Who
think?
helps them?
I was at this forum in Glover the other night, and one of the people there described a program that was primarily volunteers working with one probation and parole officer or something like that
Right.
from the criminal justice system. And so you've got one professional and a handful of volunteers that would help with those issues.
Perfect.
You know, and you know, one of the big debates in the legislative session this year, and with the governor and the veto, was these safe injection sites. Well, I guess there would, under the statute that was passed, there would only
Right.
be one.
Right, they're
in
going to do a
Burlington.
trial.
Right, and so I want to see how that
Yeah.
works. At least that's an opportunity to identify
Right,
people that are grappling with this problem. And, you know, it's not gonna, I don't see that it's gonna provide any immediate help for Essex County or Orleans County. You know, and we have quite a few people that are grappling with that, and it leads to other,
right.
you know, it leads to stealing, it leads to
Right.
domestic violence.
Right.
You know, we had one case where a fellow was desperate for drugs. He wanted his girlfriend to give him her money so he could go buy some drugs, and held a knife to her throat.
Wonderful.
And, you know, they're all,
Yep.
those problems are interrelated.
Yep. Well, they say, I have a very good friend who runs the addiction channel in Burlington on their public access, and I interviewed him, and he said these sites save lives, which there's a lot of people that die every year, and the main purpose is to be there so that they don't die. But then while you're there, there's all the help that they need if they want it, and eventually they may say, I need help, and they'll get it through these centers.
There's two other things I think we can do, too. I fish a lot, and the best fishing I know is in Montana. And in Montana, I watched them grapple with a meth problem. And this sounds naive, but they had a program called the Montana Meth Project. And a really wealthy billionaire funded it. And he paid for professional artists to work with school students, elementary and secondary school students, to develop murals around the state, on buildings around the state, with messages about drugs. And it sounds simplistic, but from what I've seen, that worked by
Interesting.
engaging students at a young level in a project, a program that makes them think
Right.
about the consequences. That had value. So I think education and
Yep.
working with students, we need to do more of that.
Absolutely.
And I also think we need to look at the other end. We need to look at enforcement. And what we see is organized criminals in states around us, like Connecticut and Massachusetts, identifying young people to be their distributors.
Oh,
And so we have a disconnect with the suppliers, and I think we need more cooperation between our police forces and the police forces in these other states, where
That's great.
they should be more familiar with who the suppliers are.
I agree.
And we need to work on that.
That's great. Sad, but great.
Yeah, really
It
sad.
really is sad. And I just wanted to talk to you about, I know you have a love for farmers, especially up in your neck of the woods. They're all over the place, and they've once again been hit by the floods. And I don't think we should forget them, because the agricultural department is asking people for help, for funds, and I forget what they call the project, but it's directly to get funding for farmers, because they were running out there trying to, well, I guess it was at Intervale, which is Burlington. They showed these people trying to pull up as many crops as they could, because they could see that the fields were going to be ruined once again, and then they're trying to pick up as much as they can to save the crops. And of course, when you've got organic crops that get a flood, and that kills that field, and you have to start all over again, they're really facing, and if this is going to continue, there's got to be some solution.
Well, one of the things that has happened in the kingdom is that there's been an expansion of vegetable farms. And I'm amazed at how on 3 or 4 acres, how
much?
What can be actually grown.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yep.
And so we have these, community-supported agricultural farms.
Great.
And it's pretty remarkable. And I think the people that I'm familiar with have been pretty intelligent in preparing for this flooding. And I haven't talked to that many, but the few that I've talked to have been okay.
Well, they're using the word resiliency these days, which I think is less, I don't know what the word is. When you're looking at climate change or climate, resiliency kind of gives you hope. That's like there's a way to work with the climate, and I think they're looking at fixing what we know will get flooded, fixing that, and fixing the homes a different way. You would know the answer to this. If you put cement in your basement and fill up your basement full of cement, where does the water go? Does it go find some other place to go? Since in my house, I'm not doing this, I'm just asking. My house is, and if you somebody was talking about putting cement in the basement, which means you don't have a basement, then the flooding would go somewhere else.
Yeah, but it always finds the path of least resistance.
Right, which would be somebody else's house.
Well, it would.
Wouldn't it go around it, the house?
Conceivably it could, or it depends on the lay of the land.
Yeah.
I mean, where does it go up?
They were actually talking about this at a little group meeting I was in, and I couldn't figure this out.
I'm not sure that's the answer.
I don't know.
Filling cellars with cement.
Well, somebody suggested, and I said, well, I don't know, because that's where the water and the mud went, ruining everybody's systems and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of systems will have to be brought to a higher level.
Yeah,
but,
right.
I think, we have a lot of mobile home parks that have been built around land close to the rivers.
Right.
And
it's very pretty when things are right.
And that's going to be something as a state we need to, we need to help find before devastation hits too many times.
We had our Weston mobile home the last year, Irene just wiped it out royally. So the owner raised each one of them up quite a bit, under the land underneath it, so it would be stable. And they managed very little damage.
All right. Well, that's the
and
sort
so
of
it worked. That's something that worked, and he did it right away, right after Tropical Storm Irene.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So and that was because you could just see the water was pretty scary. So they think that's going to be like this regularly, right? I hope we work real hard to do something.
Well, we have to. I wish I had more ideas. I just, it seems like this is going to be a very complicated problem, and it's interconnected with other complicated problems. As we try to grapple with climate change and we try to do what we can to move to renewable energy, we have all kinds of complications. You know, one of the things that concerns me is the requirement that we double in-state renewables, from the renewable energy standard.
Right.
And I don't want to see any more Lowell Mountain wind farms.
Oh, I was very vocal about that.
I think that was a terrible
Yep.
mistake. On the other hand, I think there's a lot of stuff we can do.
Right.
You know, I'd like to see us do community planning where, the Highland Center for the Arts has a huge electric bill. And
I bet.
if there were things that we could do with a small wind turbine,
Right,
or
right.
some kind of net metering with Hardwick Electric,
Yep.
I'd like to do that small stuff,
Right.
and I'd like to see Hardwick Electric, to the extent they need more renewables, I'd like to see them work with farmers and residents and businesses,
Right.
putting together small but cumulatively large renewable generation.
That'd be great.
And
Yeah, because they always try the Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
The Big Bang in it. We don't seem to do Big Bang here well. I
well,
know in
it's,
state government,
not, that's not Vermont.
yeah, no, it's exactly.
Big Bang is like,
Forget it.
Detroit, Michigan,
Right. But we do try it from time to time.
Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Just stop.
So-
Anyway, I was so adamant about Lowell, and it's not good health-wise. People were complaining about their health.
The noise.
Yeah,
it
it was making them nauseous.
It was
and-
bad for wildlife.
Yeah,
It was just bad
Right.
every way you looked at it. It was, what, 20 cents a kilowatt hour?
Right.
When you can buy clean energy from Hydro-Quebec for 7 cents a kilowatt hour?
there you go. And then they take this wide swath of land away because they need to get their tractors and trucks
Right,
up there.
and lay concrete
Right,
along
right.
the ridge line. Just nuts.
Yeah, and when you go to take them down,
That's going to be another problem.
yeah,
Another big
it's going to
problem.
look terrible. Yeah, I was pretty adamant about that. I did a lot of shows to say no, but there you go. Anyway, so we were talking a little bit, and because you've been up at the State House, that I think if you win, and I certainly wish you well with that, you will find that political discourse, I think, has changed up in the State House from years ago. Things have changed with, and we've heard it now in what's happening in the federal level. They're asking us to stop our discourse and maybe change our discourse a little bit to be more agreeable and friendly and stuff. And I think things have changed over the years.
And that's a matter of enormous concern for me.
Yeah.
I think, I always looked up to the politicians that were leaders of this state when I was a kid. And I thought George Aiken in particular
wow.
was a hero of mine. And I really admired the relationship between him and Mike Mansfield, who was his counterpart Democrat.
Right.
And they would have breakfast together every morning. And together, their relationship helped to, bring the 64 Civil Rights Act and the 65 Voting Rights Act to life. And
They set the tone.
to shepherd
Starts from the
those.
top, right?
Right. And so I think those relationships are healthy. When I was monitoring congressional hearings when I was in law school, I listened to some people who I thought were really, really good, and they managed to work across the aisle. There was a senator from Maine, Bill Cohen.
Oh, I know
And
that name.
Bill Cohen was a
Yep.
Republican from Maine.
Yep.
Gained great respect in the area of armed services. Bill Clinton made him Secretary of Defense. So you had him working with Republicans and
Right,
Democrats,
right.
really well respected. And I think New England has had a tradition of political leadership that was really defied labeling.
Right.
And
Maybe not now.
yeah, I think it's
We've lost that working across the aisles.
yeah, it's we've really
Yeah.
I think lost a lot, but that doesn't mean it's lost forever.
No, because there are some really good people up there, but there's this thing they're doing, and I wish they'd cut it out, because you can get a lot done if you just listen to the other people, because sometimes they may have a good idea too.
But I think nationally, as a country,
Right.
we have lost that. I struggle to understand what's happened to us.
Yeah.
Does it have something to do with our technology? Does it have something to do with our age as a country? Does it have something to do with the fact that more and more wealth is concentrated in a few places? Are we going through something like we did with the robber barons during the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
the first Industrial Revolution? Because in a sense, we are going through a technological revolution, not unlike the Industrial Revolution, where you have these businesses like Microsoft and Oracle and Facebook and Amazon,
Right.
and all these high-tech businesses
Right.
with huge, huge concentrations of wealth
Yep.
and a shrinking middle class. And I think that might have something to do with it.
I would see that, because you work real hard, and with the cost of living, you don't feel like
Right.
you're getting paid what you're worth, because you don't have a lot of, what's the word, disposable income.
But then
Where
on the other
is it?
hand, you see folks, like Elon Musk, getting paid $40 billion
right,
for
right.
some deal.
Right.
So I think that generates some anger.
Yep. Don't you think people are just angry?
But I don't
People.
understand. I'm trying to
I
figure
don't
out
either.
why. Yes, I do. I
Yeah.
sense that.
Yeah, they're angry, and then it doesn't take much to push them over the edge.
But
And
we have to figure it out.
Yep.
We have to figure it
well,
out.
usually it starts from the top.
And we need leadership.
Yep, exactly.
And I don't know. It must be there. I'm sure it's there, but we certainly haven't found it lately.
I'm happy.
I'm not angry,
Yeah, not either.
but I'm fortunate.
Yeah, no, me neither. I like going home, and I like my life, so there you go. I just try to deal with what I can actually impact, because if you think beyond that, you get a little crazy, right? So, have you thought? I think this last year we were talking about weighted factors in education. If I'm skipping around, I apologize. But I think it hasn't been in place long enough to really know whether the weighted factors will actually do anything. Were you involved in that or thought about it at all?
Well,
'Cause
I
it
thought-
made sense to me.
Oh, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah,
to me.
but I don't know whether it's been good or bad, because I think we're going to need a couple of years of having it in place, or am I wrong?
I think we do, and this will make me sound like a hypocrite, but first, I thought the weighting factors that were incorporated in the funding formula
Right.
was a good thing, even though I think the funding formula is too complicated.
Right.
I also have said that we need to give our boards more agency and more authority, more power, more investment in the budgeting process. But what I think has happened, what I've seen with the money that was moved around because of the weights in the formula, was that it didn't necessarily go into the classroom with the students. It's one of the problems when you have a top-down bureaucratic government. It says, we've got this program, and so we're going to give it to you, and everything's going to be fine. I think we need more time, but from what I could see on our school board, what I wanted to see, we have real high levels of poverty and dysfunctional families in our district, and I wanted to see reading interventionists and math interventionists. I wanted to see lots of real supports put into place, especially for reading.
Right.
And we did some, but not anywhere near what I thought. And so I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see.
Education is big on my mind, and I know the association, organization I work with, Campaign for Vermont, they're going to be really focused on education. This last year, they were supposed to come up with a funding mechanism for technical ed. And that was sort of this bill is going to figure out what kind of a continuous stream of funding for tech ed. And it was in the House bill, and with all kinds of other whatever, that had to do with tech ed, like a Christmas tree bill. And it went over to the Senate, and they took out all of the financial stuff. It was gone. So all they were left with was this Christmas tree technical stuff, and it passed. And I'm like, no, people.
That's not what we're... Well,
it's scary. I think it's a big issue, and I think they've just kind of passed it along because it's tough to tackle.
We made such big mistakes. I mean, I think looking back now, Act 46 was obviously a mistake.
Right.
Because, we had, first of all, the agency was supposed to collect the data and do a study and tell us what the consequences were. They never did that. But this PhD student at Yale did. And her results, what her findings were, no money saved.
Right.
And so it certainly hasn't upped the quality of any school
but
district.
do you think Act 46 didn't really call flat out for cost savings? If you read it,
No. If you read it, it was everything except mother and apple pie.
Exactly. And so it really didn't say you will save and this is the percent.
No.
It was just left wide open, so they didn't.
But I think the idea was school districts will close small schools and bus kids to different
Remember
places.
the turmoil of that? I went to so many meetings and people were...
Oh my God, do I ever. I mean,
I bet you were right in the thick of it.
I was in the thick of it.
Yeah.
We're still in the thick of it.
Yeah.
We're still, we're cutting our little elementary school to pieces now.
And then they were killing me with they wanted to eliminate independent schools, something that's actually working.
Yeah.
And they wanted to cut all of those, the religious schools and blah, 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 not give them any money. And it's like, please,
and
just fix it.
Well, the tuitioning towns seem to be, to be very happy with tuitioning. I don't know any tuitioning town that is saying, we don't want to be tuitioning anymore. Don't let us do this. Please, force us to go someplace.
That obviously is working for them financially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, it's not working for everyone financially. It's still expensive, but I think, at least from what I can see, the towns that have tuitioning really cling to it. Yeah. And it's been something that attracts new residents to those towns.
Oh, that's important.
I think.
Yeah. Well, people, when they move up, if they've got kids, they're looking for good schools. So, I mean, that's the primary thing.
And I think the idea, for some people that have moved to the towns I'm familiar with, Wolcott, Walden, Stannard, they go there because they have
good schools.
They can go where they want.
Right.
And quite frankly, most of them go to St. Johnsbury Academy.
Isn't that's one of the best schools ever?
Yeah.
That's great. So we have a few minutes, David, and first of all, I want to tell people that you have some videos on YouTube, which are very good. You're looking at me. You're in video, David.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, listen, I have some really strange videos on YouTube. Okay, there's one.
Yourself?
Well, wait a second. There's a video on YouTube of me and Bernie Sanders drinking vodka in a Russian sauna. Okay, singing "This Land Is Your Land."
Well, there you go.
Okay.
All right,
so
Bernie and Dave, the Bernie and Dave show.
Try to beat that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't. Not with talking about running for election in school, but you have very good videos out there about why they should vote for you.
Really?
And, yes, and what you.
No, I there's this college kid that helps me put this stuff
well, it's
together.
excellent.
He's a good kid. He lived with us his senior year.
You need somebody.
Well, he's really great, and he's going to school in France right now.
Oh, nice.
I was just talking to him this morning.
Cool.
And he's really good with this technical stuff. I can't even get on my Facebook page, to tell you the truth. I don't. The last time I tried to get on, it wanted a password, and I haven't saved any passwords. And so it said, if you forgot your password, click here, and we'll send it somewhere. I clicked, and I don't know where it went, but I didn't find it on my email.
You and my husband get along great. He goes, Pat. Anyway, so this is a quote that I read in one of the articles, because you do write a lot of op-eds.
I do. I read a lot of
and
op-eds.
Some great ones. If people want to look it up, go to Vermont Digger and type in David's name.
Okay, well,
That's
a
where I find
quote.
them. Anyway, here's the quote, David. Together, we can strengthen education, environmental protections, and human rights, ensuring Vermont remains a model of progress. Nice. I don't know where that came from, but you wrote it.
Okay.
And I think together, that was my theme at Motor Vehicles. I said, together, we can do it. And that's what we had all over DMV, and we did it.
Well,
So
easier
you can
said
do
than
it
done.
too. I know. It's not easy campaigning, but especially you've got a lot of places to cover,
Yeah.
you know. And
But-
if you don't knock on their door, they're like, well, you didn't knock on my door. I'm like, please.
Well, it's fun.
Have
It's-
you been
it's
in a
fun for me.
parade yet?
Oh my God, have
Oh,
we
is
been in a parade?
Oh.
Oh, we had because the Funky Fourth in Greensboro is a big day. It's how we celebrate. We don't celebrate on the 4th.
Yeah.
We celebrate on the Saturday closest to the 4th.
Ah.
And we have a big parade. And this year, we called a fellow up in Brownington who had draft horses and a hay wagon. And I called some friends of mine that play banjo and the guitar.
Nice.
And so me and my friends were singing Battle Hymn of the Republic and Old Susanna,
Cool.
and we had these draft horses. We had a lot of fun.
And vote for David Kelley signs?
Yeah, we had David Kelley signs.
There you go.
Yeah, no, we had a great time.
That's good.
Bernie was in our parade.
Oh, nice.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then Bernie had this get-together up in Standard. You couldn't believe how many people came
Oh,
to that.
really? Well,
Phew.
they
Yeah,
love him.
He's a big attraction.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
My mother just adored him, and I introduced her to him at the Tunbridge World Fair one year. I thought that was it. I'm going to the head on the will.
Yeah.
I got moved up to the to the front line. You know, forget
Well-
the rest of them.
When I was, can I tell a quick Bernie story?
Yes, please. You've got a few seconds, but we'll keep it going.
Okay, when I was in college, I had a philosophy professor whose name was Richard Sugarman,
Yeah.
who was a very good friend of Bernie's. And this was quite a while ago. This was just as Bernie was thinking of running for mayor. And Bernie didn't have a place to live. He was sleeping on Professor Sugarman's couch.
Oh, wonderful.
And Professor Sugarman wanted Bernie to move on and encouraged him to run for mayor. And a few days before the election, Sugarman, my professor, called me up and said, Bernie is running for mayor, and can you give us any advice? And I said, well, you just got to run like you're going to lose by 1 vote. And he won by 10 votes. And
Wow.
so I've always felt a certain sort of responsibility.
Exactly. You influenced. Was he sleeping on the couch when he was mayor?
No.
Oh, good.
No.
That wouldn't go so well.
No,
but
then,
Yeah, he certainly left a legend, didn't he?
He did, and he
know?
did a great job as
Yeah,
a mayor. He
exactly.
did a really good job
And
as
Peter
mayor.
Clavel followed him.
And Clavel
I
did a
love
good job
Clavel.
too.
Yeah.
They were both
Yep.
good mayors.
I'm gonna have to cut something out of here, but there was a coffee shop across the street from City Hall,
Yeah.
and there was a really nice guy every morning. You know how you talk to people in the line,
Yeah.
how are you, how are you? And I went off to Merchants Bank, and he went off to his office. This went on forever. And Dudley Davis said to me, he was the president of the Merchants Bank, we're going to go meet with the mayor of Burlington. And I'm like, whoa. And about something with the bank. And so we went in. He said, Dudley says to me, do you know the mayor? I said, no, I've never met him. And we went in, and Peter was the guy, Peter Clavel was the guy I was talking to for the last year in the coffee shop. And the two of us, oh my God, how are you, hugging and carried on. And Dudley says to me, I thought you said you didn't know him. I said, well, I think I do. It was so cool. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites. David, thank you very much. Good luck.